Thank you very much, Welfredo, for adding a very multidisciplinary perspective to the discussion on managing crisis in the world. So before we open up to taking questions that the participants have raised, I want to address a common question to all of the presenters, and which is from something which ran through all the three presentations to some extent, more significantly in Dr. Shamshuddin's and Dr. Sudarshan's presentation. Sorry, Dr. Sudarshan.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So could you please address and emphasize a little more on ensuring food security in the context of current crisis situations or dealing with the food scarcity issues? So could we start with Dr. Sudarshan, please?
Can you repeat the question?
So, as a community developer, you have been also working on ensuring food security.
Yeah.
And to deal with issues of food scarcity in the tribal areas, and also to maintain indigenous knowledge around food. So could you please emphasize a little more around that?
About the nutrition also we did study. So what we discovered was the knowledge which they have, even the children, we found that they can identify all the edible mushrooms. So the child of 3 to 5 years age, he can identify the edible and non-edible mushrooms. They have wonderful knowledge, and also edible. We found the leafy vegetables, wild ones, which they get about 25 varieties. They have now the access to the natural resources was the problem for their malnutrition. So now with the access, which has been ensured as a part of the rights for the minor forest produce, which are mostly tubers and leaves and mushrooms, all of them they are getting it. Of course, they don't have access to the protein from the animals. They can't hunt. Hunting is strictly prohibited. But that's unfortunate. But I'm telling them we should do the population of wild boars is increasing. So I say there should be a nutrition program to selectively kill the wild boars and make it a nutrition program. So by and large, their nutritional status has improved, with access to the natural resources.
It's my turn now.
Yes.
Okay. So food is good. No food, we're in trouble. Actually, we need three things: air, water, and food.
Yeah.
So people say if you have money, you have food. But that's not true. I can give you an example. Way back in 1998 in Malaysia, we have problem with rice. We don't have enough. So in Malaysia, we eat rice 3 or 4 times a day. No food will be riot. So our minister, good minister, agriculture, went to Vietnam. We want to buy rice. Vietnam said, sorry, we cannot sell it to you because we don't have enough ourselves. Then the good minister went to Thailand. Well, Thailand said you can buy, but double the price. See? So that means food we have to grow ourselves. Food security, that's the meaning of food security. I tell you what, food can be grown, but we need power, or we need the energy from the sun. And people say sun, sun is going to be there for the next 5 billion years. As long as the sun is there, we get energy from it and we grow food. And of course, I'm not talking about sun, whatever, but we need that. So we also need water. If you want to grow rice, we need water. And about 70% of fresh water in the world is used for agriculture. And most of it for rice production. So we have to think of that too. In order to produce food, we need to care of water. So I leave it, stop there for the next. Okay.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, Richa? Can I
Yes,
be heard?
Wilfred, we can hear you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. With regards to the question of food security, um, I totally agree with what my other two presenters said, and I agree that everything that we need is already given to us. We have the soil, we have the sun, okay, in order to produce whatever we need in terms of agriculture. But when you talk about food security, it's a lot more complex issues since I think what should be important also is proper education, especially from the mass space, wherein people should learn the threat that is posed by uh, radical changes happening right now. For example, the increase in world population, which will later on threaten our food security. We might not be able to feed all the people in the world given the limited or scarce resources we have. And education plays a role in such a way that we should motivate people to act responsibly and properly in relation to our natural resources. For example, a forest should not be deforested as to the extent that there will no longer be trees, which will protect the soil from eroding. It should be sustainable. There should be a sustainable reforestation. In terms of fishing, we should not never overfish. We should make sure that all species will still be available for the sake of future posterity or our future children. Okay, and this is something that is addressed by proper behavior. And proper behavior, I think, is best in a way also tackled when you talk about proper education of people. So the government really plays a big role in educating people in terms of food security, not only in producing the right sciences to contribute to the multiplication of food production, but also to a responsible response or the way we responsibly produce, consume, and, for example, grow our food. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Welfredo. And thank you, Dr. Shamshuddin and Dr. Sudarshan. And can I quickly add a gender perspective before we open the floor to questions from the participants? So during my own surveys I'm sorry, I've got very heavy rain, so let me just. So during my own surveys in Kutch and Himachal Pradesh, uh, in Kutch, more significantly, water subsidies led to overuse of groundwater and leading to the sea level and the groundwater level merging. And on this, because of the water turning saline, many crops could not be grown. So it was women who actually suggested that we should move to growing more coarse cereals, which could at least feed livestock. So they could move more significantly to livestock-based livelihoods. And in Himachal Pradesh, also in various watershed management policies, when women were also brought into the discourse and contributions were asked from them as to what solutions could be taken up. Women suggested growing millets, buckwheat, and such coarse cereals instead of intensive commercialization of agriculture and increased dependence on irrigation. So I thought women's contribution in agriculture also very significantly can address the issue of food scarcity and food sovereignty and how agriculture can help deal with the current crisis of climate change and unpredictable and very erratic weather patterns. Um, Thank you. So can we now please start with the question and answer session? And Gania, will you help me raise the first question? Uh, okay, so this is a question from Nobu Sujimura. And Nobu is asking, Nobu is saying, thank you very much for sharing your long-term dedication and experience. In regard to the concentric circle you showed, what are the differences among spirit, soul, and mind? So this question is to, I think, Dr. Sudarshan. Dr. Sudarshan, this question is addressed to you. Dr. Sudarshan, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So if you can go back to the my presentation, the last but one slide is about this question. So it's a concentric circle showing, of course, if we are differentiating Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and the Anandamaya. So there is a difference. Unfortunately, in the Western understanding, the mind, the soul, and the spirit are all in the mind itself. But in Vedanta, we differentiate. In the Vedic period, they differentiate the three. The consciousness is beyond the mind. It's not it's not feeling or thinking. It is something. It's consciousness as a separate entity. So the individual soul, individual consciousness is called soul, the Jivatman, and the spirit, the macro cosm of the spirit is the God, is the spirit. That would be the very simple explanation for the difference between mind, soul, and the spirit. Yeah. Hello. I hope it satisfies. But I didn't talk much about it because I had to discover my own spirit. I'm more interested in the immanent aspect of the reality than the transcendental reality. But I have a proof that there is an individual spirit, individual consciousness, which I have discovered. But I am yet to see the cosmic spirit, the cosmic, the Paramatman, the Hiranyagarbha as it is called. But about the reality, we can establish the harmony with the lower three levels, the Virat, that's the Annamaya, the physical universe, and the life and the mind. The cosmic mind also we can establish contact. That I am trying to establish harmony with that. That's my sadhana. Thank you.
Can we take the next question, please? Okay, so this question is addressed to Dr. Shamshuddin. Dr. Shamshuddin, in your book, The Earth Story, Lesson from the Quran and Science, you mention about black hole, white hole, wormhole, and whatnots. How would you relate these astronomical objects, theories, or hypotheses to crisis management? And this question is from Tan, of course.
Well, it's a very tough question. But anyway, I can say a bit about black hole, white hole, and so on. But I'm not a physicist. But anyway, for the last 2 years during the pandemic, I'm learning about this black hole, white hole, and so on. But I mentioned a bit in my book. So we believe in Islam. We believe in the night journey. See, the prophet went to heaven. Let's say the year 621 AD. So, and he went up there with Jibril. And then Jibril is an angel. So angel actually is made of light. That's what we believe. So the vehicle that he used was something that moved very fast at the speed of light. So the distance from the earth to heaven is very far away. In the Quran, it says to 50,000 years of travel if you use the normal. So that comes the word. We believe that the entry point to that travel was the black hole, because in the Quran, chapter 53, the star, says that when the prophet traveled up there, and then he reached a stage called Lotte tree. What's a Lotte tree? Lotte tree is a black hole, the shape of black hole. Then the Jibril stopped there. Jibril could not go there, say, you're going. And then the prophet went in very fast. And that vehicle that he used probably is a wormhole, you know? But anyway, if it is a black hole, nobody wants to go there, because once you go into black hole, you cannot come up. That's what people say. Because as you go in into it, then you travel faster and faster until you reach the speed of light, and then you go into the event horizon. Then you become singularity. I asked about singularity yesterday, Penrose singularity. You go there, you are finished, and you cannot come out. But actually, everything in the universe, in nature, they come in pairs, black and white, woman and man and woman, positive, negative. So the opposite of black hole is a white hole. So that means if you go into black hole, you can come out through white hole. Then, but you have to escape the speed of light. You have to because you need to go higher than the speed of light, and we believe that is a wormhole. You go into wormhole, and a wormhole can go that far. But of course, wormhole is not yet been proven to be true. But that mathematically correct, and then it's been found correct mathematically, but it's not been proven. But black hole has already been proven correct. So how to use this to connect to crisis management? It's a tough job to do. But well, if you are in a crisis, you want to kill yourself, you go to black hole. That's a joke aside, but that's what I mean. So from the view of a soil scientist, no, if you thought astrophysics, they would talk differently. But the principle is the same. So I hope you have some idea what is it about this question. Yeah.
I think
Is
definitely.
that right?
Yes, Dr. Shamshuddin, definitely. And I think Tan had also asked a poll on how many people would want to visit the Taj Mahal after the COVID-19 crisis is over. So, Ganya Kashish, could that poll be taken?
Oh, Taj Mahal. Oh, I've been taking Taj Mahal all the time since I was small in school, because I learned history of India. I learned history of France. They asked about Voltaire. Voltaire was during French Revolution. The first day. So Taj Mahal is always my dream. So when I was invited to attend the conference in Pune, I quickly asked my wife and my daughter, and they said they want to follow. And I told them after the conference, I wanted to go to Taj Mahal, to see Taj Mahal, because it's always my dream. But unfortunately, we have a pandemic. So and then the pandemic was about crisis. So if there was no pandemic, I already wanted to buy 2 tickets for my daughter and my wife, and for my ticket, organizer are going to pay. So well, I was unlucky. Perhaps if I go there, I may meet Shah Rukh Khan, Kajol, or whatever, Hollywood film. Yeah, I'm a fan of Hindi film.
Bollywood.
Bollywood, yeah.
Richa, may I contribute my answer to the black hole question?
Yes, please, Welfredo, go ahead.
Okay, with regards to the question, how are we going to compare black hole to crisis management? If you're literally talking about huge stars ending up as a black hole, instead of going out in a bang or a supernova or super explosion, it is something that will not happen in the near future, since our sun, which is a star, still has a long way to go. But if I would use it as an analogy in relation to crisis management, I would compare these holes to things or events that are still unknown or undetermined at the moment, or to those occasions that may possibly arise that will affect the outcome of an event. But on the other hand, we could also look at it from a positive point of view as something not merely as a mystery, but rather an opportunity to adapt, adjust, recalibrate, and learn from our present circumstances. Black holes, or any holes, may prove not only as entry points but also exits to new horizons. Thank you, Risha.
Can I add some more point? When I talk about black hole, I become very excited. So the sun will never be able to become black hole because it's too small. You need a star 3 times the size of the sun to become black hole. The sun, when it finishes the energy run out of fuel about 5 billion years from now, it will first expand, become a red giant, and then it will kill us all because it's so big that it dries the ocean and so on. But once it's done that, then it can contract, it become a white dwarf. So in order to become black hole, you need a star that has the size of billion or whatever. When the star collapse, then the supernova, I say, and that's the time you become black hole. Because black hole in the core of a lot of verses in the Quran explaining about the stars, the dead star, and then the recreator, all this, and in between we have all these processes that are going on. So that's what I'm talking about, and I tend to believe that maybe I'm wrong. The entry point for Prophet Muhammad to go into to meet God was through a black hole, because that's the only way you can go that fast. Because recently, one of my colleagues studied, he's an ulama, he actually is a scientist, and then he studied PhD in Islamic studies, and he wrote a book, and I read it last month. He was able to calculate the speed of light using, because it's 1,000 years distant, and that 1,000 he can calculate it, and then he got it right. Just the speed of light, except a bit lower. Instead of 3,000 kilometers per second, he got it 200, a bit lower, because he used the Islamic calendar. Islamic calendar is 9 days, is lower. Every 300 years, 300 calendar normal year, in the Islamic calendar is 309 days, so lower. But when he revert using the normal calendar, and he got right, the 300,000 kilometer per second. He got this message, he got this from the Quran. And then later in verse 70, in chapter 70 of the Quran, verse 4, God mentioned that sometimes spirit and angel ordered by God to see him. Then they have to travel to so far. The distance is 50,000 years of travel. But they travel is so fast, and the only way you can do it is to go using a vehicle called wormhole. That's only Einstein say that, but they cannot prove it yet. But in the Quran, it's mentioned that this vehicle, using the wormhole, you can travel 50 times the speed of light. That's what ulama mentioned it to me. I read this book. It was last month. So, anything else?
Please unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Richa has to unmute herself.
Okay, so I was saying that we'll need another session to have more discussion on the black and white hole. But
Yeah. Can I say about climate change a bit? Climate change?
Or should we maybe it's addressed as a question to you, Dr.
Climate
Shamshuddin.
change. Oh, yeah.
Let us quickly move on to the questions first. So, Ganya, can you take the next question, please? So this is both for Dr. Sudarshan and Dr. Shamshuddin. You are both active in finding solutions with others in your home areas. Do you connect with others in the world and share your methods to inspire them? This question is from Professor Barry.
Finding solution. Finding solution. So can I say something about finding a solution to a problem? Is it all right?
Should we take Dr. Sudarshan's answer first and then move on?
I've been trying to share my experience with others, but thanks to Barry, he has helped me to share it with a larger audience now. So, but I do not want to go after sharing itself through publicity and media. But whenever I get an opportunity, I do share. That's how it's happening. It should happen in the natural way. And this conference has brought me here because of the barring, and I'm very happy to share this experience with others. Thank you.
Now, can I say now?
Yes, please, Dr.
So
Shamshuddin.
thank you, Barry is my friend, good friend now, because he helped me. So I want to say something about climate change, because climate change, well, food security, of course, had problem, but there's another one. It make place dry. So in Malaysia, Sabah, and Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on, in certain years, we get very dry. Then in our area, there are many places where we grow oil palm on peat soil. So when during dry season, the water dries up, the peat dries up, and some of these, the peat will be burning peat, and we got haze. And haze is a real problem because not only it stays in Indonesia, but the wind carry it to Malaysia, Singapore, and so on. And we measure the problem of haze. I've got API, air pollutant index. So if the air pollutant index PM 2.5 is more than 300, it is dangerous because we cannot breathe. We cannot breathe the air. Very dangerous. But during certain time, 2 years ago, the API in Kalimantan was 1,000. Remember that? That is highly, you die. Very dangerous. And some part of Sumatra, we can get up to 500. And in Malaysia, we also get about 400. And where did you get this? From a burning peat in Sumatra and Kalimantan. So this is a transboundary conflict. And this has to be solved. We have to, because the one that suffers are the Malaysian, Singaporean, and of course Indonesia themselves. So we are in ASEAN countries. We should work together to solve this problem of haze is really very bad. As I say, one area or two area has 1,000 API. You can hardly breathe that kind of air. So, and the way to solve it is to get together and stop the burning of peat. And you have to manage the peat so that the water should not be below the water table. The water has to be above the peak level. If that is the case, then the burning will stop. That is the solution. And that thing has to be done by the people whose peats are being burned during the dry season. That's one problem. And we need everybody to help.
Dr. Shamshuddin, there's also another question for you from Roland Pereira.
Okay.
So Roland is saying, thank you for your talk. With respect to your book, can you please raise this question? Thank you for your talk. With respect to your book, The Earth Story, can you tell us something briefly about what it says about the Great Flood, the deluge that occurred severely 1,000 years ago from a scientific perspective?
A great flood of 1,000 years ago?
Yes, and maybe you can take it forward to the climate change context that you wanted to talk about, Dr. Shamshuddin.
So the climate change, I already talked just now about the haze thing, the climate change that caused, but the other climate change, of course, the sea level rise. I mean, there is a temperature rise. When there's temperature rise, then it's the melt of ice in the polar region. Then we got the flooding of area because sea level now in Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, we get same, and we are in the same region. So we, Malaysia, has already worked with an institute in California that we predicted that by the year 2100, because of this, if the sea level, if the temperature keep rising to 2 centigrade, then we will get that 0.5 to 1 meter above sea level. Not only in Malaysia, but also in the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, or even China. So we will be in trouble. So if the prediction is correct, then much of the lowland area along the coast will be flooded by the sea. We go back to the year 4,300 years ago. So in China, I read somebody's Professor Sun or Pituni, people from China had moved from the sea to inland. 10,000 years ago, whatever. I mean, many years ago, because of civil rights. So this civil rights is making a comeback. And believe me that it will. But nothing we can do because this already, happen naturally, whatever. But it's being made worse by activities by human like burning, using baker, petrol, and so on. So it make it faster. But this is kind of cycle, 20,000 years ago, we have Sundaland. Then we temperature up, down, and then before that, we got other areas being flooded. But the what happened in country with low-lying areas like Bangladesh, we suffer the same thing. So this is something we have to work together to find to try to make it, how to stay alive when that thing happens. But it's not an easy thing. It's a very tough job. But somehow we have to work together. Come together. We have to find solution to this. Then hopefully that people will suffer less. But this thing will happen. I believe it will.
I think Tan has another connecting question. Ganya, can we just
Okay, there's something briefly what say about Great Flood that covered 7,000 years ago. Where is this Great Flood? Oh, the Great Flood. Oh, you say the Prophet Noah? Is it that one? You were talking about that one? The Prophet Noah Great Flood that he make a boat. That one I have. We don't know when it happened. I have no idea about that. So, but I know about Noah has built a big boat that people go inside, then everywhere has flooded. But that one, I have no idea how to explain.
Thank you, Dr. Shamshuddin. We'll move on to a question for Welfredo next. So Welfredo, before the European powers, and this question is again from Tan CK. Welfredo, before the European powers introduced the idea of nation state to Southeast Asia, there were empires and wars. But there were never political crisis and tension that we are facing now with the emergence of nation states in Southeast Asia. So is nation state itself a crisis that we need to urgently manage?
Thank you, Tanchi, for that beautiful question. So it's a complex question, but to answer, yes, indeed, Asia before was heavily influenced by colonization, which actually permeated our unique traditional government institutions. So when we were still in our primitive governments, where there were empires in the Asian perspective, there were no problems that was brought about similarly when the concept of nation states was introduced by colonial powers or by the Western governments, which colonized most of Asia. So I truly believe that Asians must preserve their unique self identity, that in trying to emulate the concept of nation state of Western nations, we must also preserve the unique contributions of our traditional forms of government, which work perfectly well for all of us. And that includes preserving our traditional cultures as a people and as a, for example, as a government or state. And indeed, nation state is a crisis wherein um, governments now often emulate merely something that is not uniquely, let's say, inherent to them. And it does not always pay that we copy from Western governments or from the Western powers. Sometimes it pays off to be true to our own identity. And I think the basis of a nationhood should always start with who we are as a people, wherein we embrace our very own culture, and the influences of foreign governments should only be used in a way in order to arrange or let's say put order into how we do things. So let us take from their example that which only is, for example, applicable to our situation. So not everything that they practice as a nation state or as a government is applicable to us as an Asian nation. Okay, thank you very much, Tan. Hope that answers your.
I hope, yes, I think it does, Welfredo. Thank you. There's a question from Rashida Athar addressed to Professor Sudarshan. Can we have that on the screen, please? So, Professor Sudarshan, this question is from Rashida Athar, and she's asking you what is the cropping pattern of the Soliga tribe and the significant plants that are part of their everyday life.
Well, so I started a school with 6 children. One of them has now done MSc Agriculture and PhD also, and teaches in a forestry college. So he has studied the cropping pattern of Soligas. So basically, they had 3-tier cropping pattern where they could grow all their requirements, their protein, carbohydrate, and oil seeds also. So it's a very unique organic farming, and it was a very unique one, self-sufficiency. Maybe in terms of productivity of modern agriculture, there may not be, but that was enough productive to provide them very nutritious and unspoiled organic food, which they enjoyed it. And so it has been studied. If you contact me, I'll try to send that thesis of the Soliga tribe. Jadia is name, who has done on this cropping pattern of Soliga tribe. Thank you. You are muted.
Okay, so I was saying we'll take this question, another question from Tan for Dr. Shamshuddin, which is hinting at the catch-22 situation that we are facing in the current scenarios. So Tan asks, our soils have been polluted by mining, factory wastes, and plastic products. To capture solar energy to replace fossil fuels, we need to manufacture colossal amount of solar panels, which requires tons of silicon, which in turn have high cost due to an energy-intensive process to convert sand into high-grade silicon for solar panels. So how do we resolve this environmental degradation and energy deficiency crisis?
Oh, very long question. And anyway, I asked about the mining and pollution. You see, that one recently we have this Chinese company. They are mining bauxite in Malaysia. Before that, they were mining bauxite in Indonesia, but Indonesia said you have to process the product in the country. Otherwise, they don't want to stop the license. But the Chinese didn't want it, so they came to Malaysia at a place called Kuantan. So they came and people start mining this bauxite. Bauxite actually is aluminum oxide. So the soil there is a soil developed from basalt. Then below the basalt, the top soil is brown. They want to remove that thing, and then the bauxite below 1 meter. So they start mining, and then they remove the deposit, and they carry by lorry to the port of Kuantan. So they do it all the time, and then a lot of problem that arise from that. Not only the air was filthy, but also the water, because as the lorry moved, they went through the village, and then the air was filthy with all this bauxite thing. And when you suck in, the air, then the aluminum got stuck into your lung, and 1% of it can go to the brain and cause all kind. But that's one. But other thing, when there is a flood or rain, then the bauxite, which is very red in color, because bauxite contains hematite, which is iron oxide, reddish in color. And it goes to the river and it goes to the sea. Then even you can see the water red color in the sea. So I made a lot of noise. I wrote a newspaper. I wrote pages of things. And then luckily the government stopped it. And I told them, I went to television, so I told them, if you want to mine bauxite, you let the Malaysian country mine it and process the country and do it properly. You don't mine it, bring it to the port and export to China. Because in the bauxite, not only is aluminum, iron, but also other thing. So lucky now the government stopped it. But already they have spoiled about few 100 hectares of oil palm estate been mined by this bauxite. Then the land area, which is where you mine the bauxite, cannot be used anymore. It takes maybe 1,000 years to go back to the original soil. So the land area be mined by bauxite cannot be used anymore. So it is a real it's tragedy, And the people who allow their land to be to use for bauxite mining, they don't have any more income. So that's one. So you think about silicon convert into sand. You mean you use sand to get the silicon? Yeah, sure. It's silicon as quartz, SiO2. It's a silicon. You can get that. Of course, silicon you can use for a lot of things. But I mentioned about the soil, not the coast. So they're all sandy and sand. That can be done. But you keep mining the sand, the area will be like a mining area. So, well, sand, of course, we use it a lot in this other thing for the construction and so on. But we want to maintain the land so that it can be used for agriculture. Of course, we have to do a lot of things. So, if you are to put sand 90%, of course, there's no structure. If you want to put clay material into it, it costs a lot of money. So what we can do, we can use organic matter. Because we use the sand, put organic matter, and grow vegetable, whatever, use that place as a medium for agriculture. We are working on it. So if you want to use the sand to get the silicon, well, sure, it can be done. No problem, it's just a matter of technology.
Sorry to interrupt, but we are just about over time and have about 10 minutes before the next panel.
Okay.
So I think we can conclude here. And before you do, I'm actually very happy this could turn out to be such an interactive session. And I would actually like everyone to know that just about 5 minutes before the session, we weren't very sure if Dr. Shamshuddin and Welfredo would be able to join us at all. Dr. Shamshuddin had an annual maintenance suddenly come up, which meant that he had no electricity and couldn't use his desktop. And Welfredo has been facing an electricity crisis since yesterday. So we had not been very much in touch with him since yesterday. So I'm glad this could happen and we could take so many questions and we could have such an interactive session. And thank you all very much for actually being able to make it. Thank you so much, Dr. Sudarshan, for your time. And Dr. Sudarshan and I were waiting before that. So Dr. Sudarshan had to wait before we could actually all talk together before the session. So thank you so much for that, Dr. Sudarshan, Dr. Shamshuddin, and Welfredo for actually taking so much effort to make it in spite of so many technology and other problems and crises back home. Thank you very much. And thank you, Sean. And sorry about the extended time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.